Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. Nebraska's football team just finished up their 2023 spring game. The fellas watched it, have some takes on it, but overall a massive, massive weekend for Nebraska, right? You land Willis McGahee, the fourth early this morning. You had a ton of big-time visitors on campus, right? Brandon Baker, the number one offensive tackle in the country for modern days, back on second time on campus. Aiden Breland was there. Carter Nelson, the in-state tight end, was there. When you look at how Nebraska wants to recruit, your biggest selling point is you're going to play for some of the best fans in the country. And 60,000 plus showing up to a spring game, Brandon Baker can go out to Oregon, can go out to USC. You're not going to see that kind of environment there. And so that's their biggest selling point. I thought the Nebraska fans did a phenomenal job showing out, and I no doubt it resonates with some of the recruits. Now, getting into the spring game, I thought you love to see just a physical spring game. You saw Nebraska come out against Northwestern under Scott Frost last year after a thud spring game, I believe, last year. I mean, really a lack of physicality, and I know they were banged up, but that team just did not look ready to play against Northwestern, and quite frankly, just didn't look to have the physicality to play in the Big Ten, period, under Scott Frost. Matt Rhule's bucking that trend real quick. I mean, quarterbacks are live. They are playing that was a real game that I know a lot of Nebraska fans appreciate. As a kind of honorary Nebraska fan, I appreciate it too. Now, going to get into the players, some of the what we saw from the game. Before we do, though, again, I just want to say thank you to you guys, especially Nebraska fans. We have such a blast talking ball with you guys in the comment section. We learn a lot from you guys, so let us know in the comment section what you guys thought of the game, some players that we need to add to the notepad. And, of course, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, Coach Satterfield taking over. You have a little bit of a quarterback competition. Start off with Jeff Sims and how you thought this offense looked under him.
So just to start, I thought Jeff Sims looked really good. It didn't really put the ball in harm's way at all. Really good with his legs at times. And probably the one thing that they're going to really need from him, or really whoever plays quarterback, but honestly, he'll be the best athlete in that room, is they probably need a guy who can make things happen when the pocket breaks down and when off schedule kind of play. Because again, this offense line did look better, especially in the run game. I thought they played pretty good, but I don't think it's going to be the strength of this team, and certainly the pass pro that needs to continue to get better. But for that part of Jeff Sims' game, I mean, he was able to make plays happen when his offensive line broke down a bit, and that to me gives him the best chance of winning that job, because they're going to need that.
Yeah, and when you look at the quarterback battle as a whole, like the two, I would not count out Henrik Harsberg though. He looks like he's a guy. That being said, it does seem like a two horse race there with Jeff Sims and Casey Thompson. Like they brought in Jeff Sims. Like Casey Thompson was there from Scott Frost era. Like this was the guy they wanted in the transfer portal. Obviously, Matt Rhule and Coach Satterfield felt good about him. And I do agree. Like you don't appreciate enough how big Jeff Sims is and how hard he is to tackle until you see him out there next to offensive linemen and kind of like their height. And this dude is 6'4". He looks like he's almost 230 pounds. Phenomenal athlete. You saw him use his legs, and that's what I appreciated most about having the quarterbacks live is guys like Jeff Sims. Like that's their game. Like,
and I don't want to like sit up here and pretend like Jeff Sims also ripped some really nice passes.
Yeah.
I mean, he hit that one to the tight end up the seam on the first drive. I mean, that's the type of plays they need to make, and he was able to do it. I thought for the most part he was really accurate, and again, his legs are a big part of his game, but I thought in the air he played really good too.
And that tight end up the seam is exactly what you want, especially with how loaded this tight end group is. Like Eric Gilbert, obviously, I don't think like great drops some balls, but he's a dude that has endless amount of talent. Thomas Fedone is kind of the guy that a lot of Nebraska fans are banging the table for. Like they're going to do a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight ends on the field, and that's how you want to see this run. Like you want to be able to establish the run and then work off play action and hit the tight ends up the seam. And to see that on the first drive, like that is exactly what you want to see. Now, I'm wanting to see some more playmakers step up on the outside. Like these tight ends will play a significant part in this offense. And like, look at teams like Georgia, look at teams like Michigan. They use their tight ends a lot, and those are damn good offenses. But you got to have some guys on the outside who can make plays. And a guy that I was kind of talking about during the preview, Billy Kemp, coming over from Virginia. You talk about a quarterback's best friend. That's kind of what I've been calling him. A guy that's going to create separation early, present himself to the quarterback, and then go get yards after the catch. He's going to allow a guy like Jeff Sims or Casey Thompson, whoever it might be, to be like, I know Billy Kemp's going to be open. I know I'm going to be able to hit him, and I know he's going to go make a play for me.
And that is, I mean, he's certainly the wideout who probably shined the most for sure.
Oh yeah,
And
he's
another
awesome.
guy, Marcus Washington, looks like a really talented player. Does a good job getting open, has some speed. Again, you got to catch the football. Obviously, same story for Eric Gilbert, but they got to shore up that part. But again, there's like some talent on the field. And obviously, we've talked about in the past, like given what they have at wideout, I'm pretty confident Malachi Coleman's going to play a lot in his freshman year when he gets in the summer and fall, because the playmaking isn't right there right now, but that is one thing that what you're going to have with Malachi Coleman, is a guy who can really run and is really big and will be hard to cover.
Yeah, you saw Matt Rhule takes over. Trey Palmer obviously going to the NFL draft, and he said we got to go address this wide receiver room. We got to get some playmakers, because if it wasn't Trey Palmer catching the ball, like it was tough sledding. And going out and getting a guy like Billy Kemp, Joshua Fleeks, like they and then obviously Malachi Coleman in the 2023 class, like that will help a lot. And then the running back room, I think this team's. You talked about, I thought this offensive line looked much better in terms of physicality running the football. I thought there was some movement. A guy like Ben Scott on the inside, I thought looked really good. You obviously get Newly back from the suspension. I think they're going to be able to run the football well. And that's probably the most important thing for Coach Satterfield in that offense to get going. Because what does he want to do? He wants to work the play action. And in order for play action to work, you got to have the defense respecting the run. And there's not many deeper running back rooms in the country. Like Anthony Grant's probably your all-purpose guy, probably the best running back in that room. But you have three running backs who all do a little bit of a different thing, right? Gabe Ervin is just a bust. Like he is so hard to tackle between the tackles. He's going to run right through you. And then you have a guy like Ramir Johnson who you didn't see him at all last year, which was just kind of a head scratcher. He stuck around, so I give him credit. He's a guy who's phenomenal in space. So Satterfield's going to want to do a lot of different things with this offense, especially in terms of running the football. I think they have the personnel to kind of do whatever they want, though.
And that's going to be the thing. It's just, can they manage? It felt like they didn't manage it well enough because, frankly, Anthony Grant was taking way too many of the carries. And I just felt like he got worn down. But you look, and especially you got to see today, Ramir Johnson or Gabe Ervin are very capable runners. Jeff Sims is probably going to get 5 to 10 carries a game at least. Like, again, I just think if they spread out a little bit and let Anthony Grant be fresh through the whole season and do what he does, because he is the best running back on this team, no doubt in my mind. But it's just giving him the opportunity. It's a similar thing with like a team like Michigan, where they kind of ran Blake Corum a little bit into the ground, and that obviously hurt them come that title game. And if Nebraska is going to want to come in, become that team that they want to be, where they're going to be able to compete late in seasons for Big Ten titles, they need to, again, be a little more deep and play. And they were deep last year. It just felt like it was oddly managed. But that's what one thing I think you see is that running back room has a great potential to be a little bit more or a little less top heavy and give Anthony Grant the chance to be really good right through the whole season.
Yeah. Switching over to the defense side of the ball. This is Tony White, I think, was one of the best hires of the offseason. We talk about Phil Long going to Wisconsin. There's not many better defensive coordinators in the country than Tony White. You look at his body of work at Syracuse, taking a team that lacked a lot of talent and put it together a phenomenal defense that turns the ball over. Matt Rhule really hit it out of the park, I think, with Tony White. And what I'm most excited for is to see this multiple defense you see Tony White run, right? Calls itself the 3-3-5. You're going to see a lot of different formations, and we talk about how to scheme up or how to get pressure on a quarterback. There's really two ways, right? You can either have guys who are just going to win, or you can scheme up pressure. And this multiple front defense that Tony White runs, I think Nebraska is going to be able to really scheme up a lot of nice blitz packages. You saw him get in his bag a little bit this afternoon. But more importantly, they have the personnel to do so. Like when you're trying to scheme up blitzes, you have to have some guys drop off. MJ Sherman, Chief Borders. Those are guys who are able to rush the passer at an extremely high level, but also play in space as well. And I really like Tony White matched up with the personnel in the front seven they have to really start creating some negative plays and some turnovers.
And that's true. Like you saw what Borders and Sherman were doing today. They were playing all over the field. They were playing at the edge spot. Chief Borders playing a lot off ball. And that is the thing. They're guys who you can do a lot with. And that's kind of important when you're playing that 3-3-5, because it is more positionless than your base 4-3 kind of vanilla defense. And frankly, today is what I thought was most encouraging is you saw the young guys play incredible. I mean, Cameron Leinhardt, those tackles could not block him when it was one-on-one, and he was winning pretty consistently. Prince Will looked really, really good too. And that's kind of the encouraging thing because you just didn't have enough of that last year. Like the defensive end play was not nearly good enough to be a really good team. And yeah, you saw those freshmen come in, make immediate impact. Those transfers come in, make immediate impact. So that's got to be one thing that's really encouraging for this with Nebraska.
Yeah, those true freshmen are going to play a lot for Nebraska early as true freshmen. And then going to the secondary, I thought this was a really strong group last year. I think it's going to continue to be a strong group. And it's nice to think about what a better pass rush could look like for guys like Quentin Newsome and Malcolm Hartzog in the secondary. In terms of forcing turnovers, I thought Corey Collier looked really good, the transfer from Florida. You win a lot of football games in the Big Ten West by taking possessions. Like those possessions when you're playing teams like Iowa, Minnesota, they're at a premium. Like you don't have the ball that many times. If you're able to take away possessions, that's how you win football games in the Big Ten West. And I think this Nebraska team is going to be able to do that at a high level.
You kind of knew this team was going to be loaded in the secondary. I mean,
it
was a really good group last year with the three. I mean, we've talked about in the past is Newsome, Buford, and Farmer. All three played really good football last year. And so these new guys coming in, I mean, that other cornerback position is very much up for grabs, but that's going to be a really hard position to crack, right? And you're kind of right. Ultimately, they just need to be way better up front and at that linebacker spot because that was where they got beat last year. It certainly wasn't the secondary.
Yeah, and those linebackers, I'm excited to see. I really liked what you saw from the defensive line as a whole. Even the guys on the inside, Nash Hutchmaker, Roquan Buckley, Elijah Judy from Texas A&M, I thought looked good. Stephen Wynn. That the most important thing for those linebackers is that defensive line last year was just not physical enough. Those linebackers were not playing clean. Like you have Luke Reimer and Henrik are some of the best linebackers in the country, and the defensive line didn't do them any favors. I'm really excited to see those kind of guys play behind a more fortified and more deep defensive line and let those guys go make plays like they were doing in 2021.
And that's the thing. And one other thing I thought from today that was very encouraging was a guy like Jamari Butler stepped up and he was making plays all day today. And that, again, you can criticize the defensive line play. It certainly wasn't great last year, but Reimer and Heinrich just need to play better football too. Like you can, I mean, there's part of the equation is I don't think they played good enough. And now, I mean, with those two coming back with all that experience and hopefully just kind of get back to what they look like in 21. But again, if a guy like Jamari Butler can kind of get his plays on the field, especially in a defense where there's a lot of areas or a lot of positions to play, maybe you should say, with a guy like Jamari Butler who looks like he can do a lot, is a really good athlete and can play in space. So I am hoping to see maybe someone like him step up and be a little bit more of a dynamic playmaker because that, again, we've talked about it, that is something Nebraska sorely missed last year. It just didn't have negative plays at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So looking towards the next couple months, obviously transfer portal open for I think a week and a half more. Nebraska has some scholarship concerns, but you'll see that kind of shake out. Nebraska might target one or two guys in the transfer portal. I think an offensive tackle would make a lot of sense. But again, they wanted Walter Rouse there in the first window, and then Oklahoma kind of snatched him away. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go target another offensive tackle. But again, appreciate you guys checking us out. This is going to be a very fun team to talk about, whether it's on the 2024 recruiting trail, whether it's in the transfer portal. So again, if you do enjoy it, lock in, subscribe to the channel. Can't thank you guys enough for showing out and supporting the fellas, and we'll talk to y'all later.